Hey there, besties. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're continuing our recap of the manhwa, Betrayal of Dignity. If you're new to this series, check the description below for links to previous episodes. Lastly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. What do you feel right now? Duke Damien asked Chloe. I feel resentment, she replied, her gaze fixed on his. I do not believe you, the Duke said. I'm deeply upset, Chloe told him, her heart beating fast as his hand slid down her leg. Let me ask you one more time, how do you feel? He asked again. Her heart raced even faster, causing her to twitch slightly. She clenched her dress hard. My heart is beating painfully fast, she said softly. Is your whole body growing hot as if there are embers burning within you? He asked, slipping his hand into her leg brace. Is your blood flowing so rapidly that you are unable to control your breathing? He continued softly as he gently removed the brace. Does your heart feel as if it might burst from your chest? He asked. Chloe lay on the floor, her face turning red, her heart still beating fast. Yes, she muttered softly. And that is precisely why I feel such resentment, she added. Duke Damien leaned forward, planting his lips on hers, kissing her gently. They kissed passionately for a while before he let go, leaving Chloe panting, her face flushed. Tell me, how does it feel to kiss the man you compared to the devil? He asked, closely observing her face as he stroked her hair gently. Please allow me to return to my chambers, Chloe begged. I suppose I must oblige if that is what you wish, he told her. Chloe's breathing calmed down gently as their affair at night came to an end. I hear railway tracks will soon be laid on the Verdier estate. The place will likely develop at lightning pace. Is this your wedding gift to your wife, your grace? A count asked the Duke over dinner the next day. Do you see that as a problem? Duke Damien inquired. Of course not, the count said, laughing. Chloe ate her food in silence, pretending not to hear the man's jest. I am merely surprised that you are such a devoted husband, the count added. How tiresome, Chloe thought, feeling tense. By the way, some rather concerning movements have been detected in the Duchy of Carter as of late. They declared the war over, but we cannot be sure when they might stab us in the back. They could strike again at any moment, using their geographical location to their advantage. You must deal them a blow, Your Grace, the Count told Duke Damien. In fact, you may need to come to a decision before long, he added. Duke Damien pondered silently over this news. Turning his glance towards his quiet wife Chloe, he said, I would like to know what my wife thinks of this. Chloe flinched as she held her spoon. They all stared at Chloe in shock, casting dark looks at her. I am but a layperson when it comes to affairs of politics and diplomacy, she said. Of course, a noble woman from a good family such as yourself would not have had to concern yourself with such matters, a count said, smiling. However, I do know that the people of Swanton are tired of war, Chloe said gently. That may be so, but would conquering the duchy not ultimately benefit our people? Duke Damien asked. Nobody can guarantee victory in war. We cannot assume that Carter's military strength will remain weak, Chloe said, sending the hall into silence as the counts watched her in amazement. As Count Weiss noted, the Duchy of Carter is perfectly capable of making use of its geographical location, she added. Now this is a surprise. The Duchess's range of knowledge is quite vast, Lord Weiss said, smiling. You are too generous, Lord Weiss, Chloe replied gently. Do you mean to say we should just sit by as Carter expands its power? They have already begun to raise tariffs on goods imported from Swanton. What is your opinion on that matter? Duke Damien asked, causing murmurs among the guests. Lord Weiss wore a smirk as they all observed Chloe. Is he trying to humiliate me in front of these men? Chloe thought as she clenched her dress in anger. If that is the case, I refuse to simply go along with it, she resolved inwardly with conviction. It would be most ideal to sign a peace treaty. Bloodshed must be avoided at all costs, especially when it is possible to achieve peace via diplomacy, Chloe said. That is little more than naive optimism. Promises are broken more often than they are kept, Lord Weiss interjected politely with a smile. There are ways to ensure they will not violate the treaty, Chloe replied. How do you figure? He asked. The kingdom values ties of blood. There are many possible approaches, but the most effective among them is to form an alliance through marriage, Chloe explained. A marriage of state. A classic arrangement indeed, it would be effective. But the duchy only has one male heir, and the royal family of Swanton has produced no princesses, Duke Damien said, informing her of the situation. Swanton has Prince Johannes, while the heir to the Duchy of Carter has 3 older sisters who have yet to marry, Chloe said. Lord Wyse and the other counts began murmuring at the mention of Prince Johannes. They scoffed at his name. Chloe watched them, feeling tense. Johannes, Johannes, someone muttered almost laughing. What is happening? It seems they are very subtly mocking me, Chloe thought. Being wedded to the prince is simply too awful to imagine. It seems her ladyship has not been keeping up with the red veil, Lord Wyse said, resting his back against his chair. If you read the articles about the prince, he continued but was cut off by another count. Lord Wyse, what could have inspired you to bring up the red veil? Where are your manners? The count interjected. No. I am curious myself as to whether my wife has ever read the red veil, Duke Damien said, laughing lightly. Judging by your expression, it seems you have, he added, giving Chloe a sharp look. Only by chance. I did not pay it much mind as it is only a cheap tabloid, Chloe replied calmly. I shall go ask for dessert to be served. Please continue your discussion, she said, getting up from her seat. She is truly a remarkable woman. I can see why His Grace rushed into this marriage, Lord Wyse said to his neighbor, a count. Lord Wyse. If you are infatuated with your former superior's wife, you will find yourself in serious trouble, the count replied calmly. I am not romantically interested, of course, it is respect I need, Lord Wyse said. Chloe limped gently with her walking cane, gripping the handle tightly. They are truly the worst, she thought inwardly as she left the dining room. That night, someone knocked on Chloe's door, waking her from sleep. My lady, the person called out, knocking harder on her door. What on earth is the matter? Chloe shouted as she opened her door in anger. My lady, the person said, placing a hand on Chloe's shoulder. What are you doing here? Chloe asked in shock upon realizing it was Eliza. Eliza, Chloe shouted, her voice filled with surprise and confusion as the former maid looked at her in fear. Oh my word, Mrs. Eliza, a maid cried out, dashing towards Chloe's room. You mustn't be seen here. If His Grace were to find out, the maid said, grabbing Eliza's arm in an attempt to drag her out. Let go of me. Do you know how long I have worked here? I've dedicated my whole life to serving this family. Eliza cried out in protest. Calm down, Eliza. Now tell me why you are here, Chloe said, trying to calm them both. It's my grandson. He is sick with a fever and is losing consciousness. He has even started mumbling gibberish, Eliza said, looking scared. Please allow me to see the family physician, Your Grace, she pleaded in fear. Could he be suffering from the same illness I was afflicted with as a child? Chloe thought, instantly analyzing the child's illness in her head. She recalled when she was sick as a child. Chloe stood still for a moment. Go fetch the physician at once, Chloe ordered the maid. But I cannot do so without His Grace's permission, the maid said in fear. Do you intend to disturb His Grace's sleep at this late hour? Or have you forgotten that I am the mistress of this castle? Chloe said with an authoritative tone. I shall send for him at once, the maid said, flinching at Chloe's words. Eliza, put me on your back and take me to your cottage, Chloe told her as the maid dashed out to get the family physician. Pardon? Eliza asked, confused. Treating a fever is a race against time. We must make haste, Chloe said, quickly wearing her cloak. They soon arrived at Eliza's cottage. What are you doing to him? Eliza asked as Chloe uncovered the shivering child from his covers. Cold, so cold, Eliza's grandson exclaimed. Go outside and fetch me some snow. Quickly now, we need to cool his fever, Chloe instructed Eliza. Do you not hear him? He will freeze to death. Eliza shouted at Chloe. Chloe opened a medicine she had brought with her. If nothing happens to him, I shall never forgive you, Eliza warned, her voice trembling. You may resent me all you wish later, but if you want to prevent your grandson from spending the rest of his life with a limp like mine, you must trust me, Chloe said as she fed the child some medicine. Soon after, the family physician arrived. The boy's temperature had calmed down, and he slept peacefully. Her Grace did a remarkable job of treating him. He may have been beyond help had she arrived any later. You should be grateful to her, the doctor told Eliza. Your Grace, how shall I repay you? She sobbed. I did not save his life to make you beholden to me. I am glad the child will be fine, Chloe replied. The door creaked open gently. It was Duke Damien. Chloe, he called, causing everyone to turn toward him. Your Grace, Eliza said, looking frightened. Come out, Duke Damien said with a cold look. They walked together to the castle. Eliza was supposed to leave 2 days ago, but she had been unable to because her grandson had fallen ill. The money she had siphoned from the castle had been squandered by her son, who had left for Swain and gambled it all away. The child is innocent. It is the adults who have sinned, Chloe said as they walked together. Furthermore, given how Eliza has devoted her whole life to serving House Thisse, she is no different from family, Chloe said. Duke Damien didn't respond, his face remaining unimpressed. Chloe glanced at him, exhaling silently to calm her tense feelings. Duke Damien kept his gaze forward, pretending not to mind her. I called the physician without asking your permission because I did not wish to disturb your sleep. I apologize, she said, clenching her fist against her cloak. Duke Damien paused, turning his gaze towards her. Chloe, he said, prompting a yes, I never asked you to explain yourself. There is no need for you to justify your actions or apologize. What I want to know is why you decided to help her. I am told you even wrote her a letter of recommendation, Duke Damien said. She seemed in need of assistance. Having worked at Birch Castle her whole life, she would have found it impossible to obtain a letter of good word from elsewhere. As for my decision to call for the physician, the situation was so urgent that I had little time to waste, Chloe explained. Was it not that you wished to unburden yourself of the guilt from her dismissal? Duke Damien asked. No, it was not, she replied. Then was it out of pity? Because her son gambled away all her money? Duke Damien asked again. No, that was not the reason either, Chloe replied. Then is it perhaps that you have always had such deep compassion for your servants? He said rudely. Your Grace, are you able to give clear reasons for everything you do? Chloe asked calmly, hiding her anger at his accusations. Yes, almost, he said, feeling pleased with himself. Well, I am different. I cannot comprehend why you insist on asking such questions, Chloe said with a sigh. Then tell me, what do you do instead of asking questions when you wish to become closer acquainted with someone? Duke Damien asked her. Chloe was taken aback by the question. I just get to know them naturally, she said, turning her gaze away from him, her mind recalling the first time she saw Duke Damien from her room. When you quietly observe a person, there are things you learn about them without needing to resort to interrogation, Chloe explained. She gently rubbed her hands together. You look cold, Duke Damien remarked, observing her. He took off his cloak and draped it over her shoulders. I am thinking of giving you another gift, Chloe. I am considering hiring Gillis Watteau for the now vacant position of stable master. He is living hand to mouth as a day laborer at the train station instead of returning to the Verdier estate. So it will likely come as a welcome suggestion, he told her. Do you wish to keep him close? He asked coldly. He is a trustworthy young man. I vouch for him with my life, and I swear to you that nothing improper has ever happened between us, Chloe said, holding on to the cloak, her face blushing. Duke Damien maintained a cold expression before his lips curled into a smirk. Do you now? He asked, leaning toward her. If that is the case, Chloe, then kiss me, he demanded in a commanding tone. Pardon? Chloe asked, sounding unsure. Prove to me that your relationship with that servant is as pure as snow. Then, I shall gladly employ him, Duke Damien said, touching her face. I have no desire to kiss you, Your Grace, Chloe replied, her expression tense. That is a pity. Looks like that poor boy will soon find himself on a train out of Thisse, he said, standing upright with an awkward look. Gillis is free to choose where he settles, Chloe said firmly. I am a devoted husband, Chloe. The less confidence my wife instills in me, the fewer places he will find himself welcome in these lands. A duke's authority takes precedence over a servant's liberty in this kingdom, he said with a cold look at his wife. How unfortunate for the kingdom, Chloe said sadly. Please lower your head, she said politely. As you wish, Duke Damien said, lowering his head for a kiss. Chloe yanked his shirt forcefully, drawing him closer. The kiss shocked him. They paused, with the Duke holding her close and squeezing her lightly. Do not try to flee, he told her, causing her to flinch. Chloe slowly pulled her hand away from his shirt before kissing him again, this time with more passion. She trembled slightly before letting go, both of them panting. The fact that the most passionate kiss you have given me to date was for someone else's sake makes me both extremely pleased and highly insulted, Duke Damien said in a mocking tone. In her study, Chloe wrote a letter to her father. To my beloved father. Please forgive me for not writing earlier. I have been quite preoccupied lately. The weather here is cold enough that the river has frozen over, though I hardly had the time to notice. The employees of Birch Castle have been nothing but polite and welcoming. The Duke, who is my guardian and the master of the castle, has done his best to help me adjust to life here. There is one more piece of news that may surprise you. You mentioned in your last letter that you were upset by Gillis's sudden decision to leave his post at Verdier Castle. It seems he was quite taken with the Thisse estate, which he had visited briefly. His Grace has offered Gillis a fine position at Birch Castle, which I believe was done out of consideration for me. As you can see, I am being treated with the utmost generosity and respect, so you need not worry. I wish you the best of health until the next time I write. With a heart full of longing.
Chloe Verdier, daughter of Thomas Verdier.
Duke Damien played snooker with focused intensity. What brilliant shots I've been making today, he remarked, hitting the ball with precision. Chloe observed him quietly. I will soon have over 100 points, he added as he sat down against the pool table. You've been playing against the rules, Chloe pointed out. You lost a point just now. Duke Damien said, turning to her. I recall you mentioning that you didn't know the rules earlier. If you lied to avoid playing with me, I'd be quite disappointed. Chloe approached him gently. Why did you call me in the middle of the night? If your intention is to confirm whether I've been fulfilling my duties, rest assured, you'll find no issue. My relationship with the servants has much improved. Take this cue, Duke Damien offered, handing her the stick. You wish to compete against me? Chloe was taken aback. I do, he confirmed. What are the conditions of the game? Chloe asked, taking the cue.
Conditions?
Duke Damien asked, puzzled. I don't like to play games without a wager, where nothing is at stake, Chloe said, cleaning the cue's tip. You never fail to surprise me, Duke Damien said, considering her words. A wager. Is there anything you want? If I win, Chloe began, you must stop summoning me to your chambers so late at night. And if I win? Duke Damien inquired, causing Chloe to pause her cleaning. Did you fail to consider the possibility of losing? How reckless, Duke Damien teased. Then if I win, I shall take something of yours that I want, Duke Damien said as he took his shot. Do as you please, Chloe replied confidently, her voice steady. Chloe took her shot but missed, causing Duke Damien to lean in and say, that was a foul. That cannot be, Chloe protested. Your eyes deceive you. Such a shame, he said with a hint of jest. I can't believe this man, Chloe thought inwardly. Duke Damien observed her closely as she prepared for her next shot. I knew you were surprising in many ways, yet you far exceeded my expectations, Chloe, he thought, watching her intently. Are you aware that the essence of this game is to trick your opponent into making a mistake? He added gently. So I've heard, Chloe replied, focusing on her shot. 2 days from now, a group of distinguished guests will be visiting Birch Castle. I trust you'll do your best as Duchess to welcome them, Duke Damien continued. Oh, and one more thing, Marchioness Isabella will also be in attendance. She's rather fussy, so I suggest you pay extra attention to the preparations, he said, leaning closer to her ear. Chloe struck the white ball hard, missing her intended shot. Oh dear, it appears you've lost, Chloe, Duke Damien said, observing her tense expression as she looked at the pool table. Chloe's inner thoughts whirled. What did he just say? Marchioness Isabella? What is this man thinking? Anger stirred within her as she focused on her hanging ball. Now, Chloe, it is time for you to give me what I want, Duke Damien said, observing her sudden change in demeanor. And what might that be? She asked, her voice turning cold. I want your lips, Chloe Verdier, he declared. Is that a sincere request? Chloe asked him. Never have I been more earnest in my life, he said, playing with a lock of her hair. What's wrong? You are the one who suggested a wager, he teased further. Inwardly, he wanted to see her snap, to release all the feelings she had been suppressing. Your Grace, never have I felt such contempt for another human being, she said, turning to fulfill his request. That is quite the honor, he replied as they kissed. So, is that all you have to say? He asked afterward. No, there is more, Chloe replied. Go on, I am listening, he urged. Yes, Chloe. Scream at me. Ask how I could possibly insult you like this. Don't hold it in. Show me what you have kept pent up inside, he thought. Chloe clenched her fist in anger before relaxing. If you have no further instructions, may I take my leave now? She asked calmly, then left the room quietly, shutting the door behind her. Duke Damien watched the room, feeling a twinge of disappointment. It seems I underestimated my wife's ability to drive me mad, he said with a calm smile. A few days later, guests arrived at Verdier Castle. I thank you for making the long journey here. It is my hope that you will find your stay comfortable, Chloe tells them, welcoming them. She glanced toward Marchioness Isabella. Welcome, Lady Isabella, she greeted her calmly. Thank you. I was concerned that my presence here might upset you, Isabella said, feeling shy. You are a close friend of His Grace. What reason could I have to be upset? Chloe replied, causing the Marchioness to twitch inwardly. It was not my wish to attend an occasion where I would feel so wretched, Marchioness Isabella said, rubbing her eyes in pretense that she cried. Oh dear, another lady said. Oh my. Are you all right, Lady Isabella? Another asked, trying to console her. My apologies. I just feel that the world is such a cruel place, Marchioness Isabella said, sobbing. Chloe thought to herself, wretched? Can her misery really compare to that of a woman who must show hospitality to her husband's rumored mistress? If you do not feel at ease here, I shall have a room prepared where you may rest comfortably. Would you like to return to the castle for some repose? Chloe asked. It is as I expected. My presence upsets you. I knew I would not be a welcome figure here, Marchioness Isabella said, covering her face as she sobbed more. Pardon? What do you mean? That was not my intention, Chloe said, unsure of what to say as the Marchioness blamed her falsely. The other ladies began whispering amongst themselves. What is happening here? Duke Damien asked, stepping into the room. Your Grace. Well, the Marchioness was feeling poorly, so I suggested that she return to the castle, Chloe explained. I see, he responded. Marchioness Isabella stopped crying as she looked at the Duke. I should never have come here, she said, looking tense and turning away from him. It is my own fault for coming. When I know how widows and divorcees are regarded in this country, she added with a harsh tone. Oh my, I do not believe there is a single soul here who thinks that. It is not your fault that your husband passed away, another lady said with a smile. Besides, an outdoor party in the middle of winter would be difficult to endure for anyone who just came from Swain, she added. Oh, come to think of it, I am not feeling so well myself. There was nothing funny in the food, was there? The second lady who accompanied the Marchioness said. Oh dear, my tea has gone completely cold, the first lady remarked, picking up her teacup. Chloe observed their hostility. They are full of hostility towards me. They likely do not want to accept that the disabled daughter of a penniless count is now a duchess, she thought. I shall call for a carriage, Lady Isabella, Duke Damien said calmly. I do not wish to spoil this occasion on account of my presence, Marchioness Isabella replied. So I shall, Duke Damien began but was abruptly cut off by Chloe. No, if I had felt uneasy because of you, I would not have extended this invitation to you in the first place. If you are feeling better, I hope that you will grace us with your company. But if you are feeling indisposed, you are at liberty to go rest. That is all I meant, Chloe said, authority resonating in her voice. Lady Isabella looked a bit scared at Chloe's words. The same goes for the other guests, Chloe added. Not at all. I was merely feeling apprehensive as I have never attended such a big party before, the First Lady said with a tense smile. Precisely. I thank you for your concern, but I had no intention of leaving early. I too was feeling tense as I have not attended social events in a long while, said the Second Lady. What do you wish to do, Lady Isabella? Chloe asked her. I am feeling better now. I apologize for the disruption, she said, turning her face away in shame. Thank you all for your understanding. We will soon be serving pudding, chosen to suit everyone's tastes. I hope you will enjoy it. That is Isabella's favorite dessert, Chloe told them. How thoughtful of you. I thank you for the hospitality, my wife, Duke Damien said. You are most welcome, Chloe replied, turning to him before stepping away gently. Duke Damien watched her in awe. Lady Isabella dried her fake tears, breathing a sigh. Her thoughts were angry. How unexpected. That woman is not to be trifled with, she thought. If you think about it, it was the Marchioness who met His Grace first. She has every right to feel that she was deprived of what should have been hers, one of the ladies said, putting on her skate shoes. Yes, precisely, the Second Lady added. And how absurd that we should be expected to ice skate in such frigid weather, said the First Lady. We will be leaving tomorrow, so let us bear with it until then, the Second Lady replied. Marchioness Isabella glanced at them gently while they chatted. I would never have come had it not been for the sake of my husband's business, the Second Lady continued. Marchioness Isabella's thoughts stirred. Deprived of what should have been mine. Ha! A baseless assumption, she thought as she watched Chloe being pushed in a sleigh by the Duke. She had a plot to execute. I do not intend to be deprived of anything, she resolved inwardly. Soon the guests and hosts were skating on ice. Chloe remained in the sleigh, pushed by the Duke. What excellent weather we are having, he remarked. Indeed, she replied. So, are you enjoying the veiled enmity among the ladies? Duke Damien asked her. Everything has been proceeding smoothly thanks to you, she said gently. Leaving Isabella aside, I did not think you would allow yourself to be easily defeated. But you've exceeded my expectations, he told her. Do you find the situation amusing, Your Grace? Chloe asked him. There is no reason why I should not, he replied. If I allowed myself to be disrespected in full view of the servants, I would have irrevocably lost my authority as Duchess. And if that were to happen, I knew it would undoubtedly have a negative impact on both you and House Thisse. That is why I could not stand idly by. I was merely upholding the duty of a Duchess, which you like to emphasize at every opportunity, she explained calmly, as he pushed her sledge gently. My wife, Duke Damien called her with respect. Yes, Your Grace? She asked calmly. Do you not resent me? He asked, causing her to flinch gently. Even if I did, I am not such a fool that I would admit it out loud, she replied. Why is that? Duke Damien asked. Because you currently have my life in your hands. I do not wish to be stranded in the middle of a frozen lake as a result of having offended you, she said, turning her gaze to him. There is nobody who amuses me quite as much as you, Duke Damien told her, smiling. Chloe watched him quietly before turning her gaze away. The Duke hurriedly left Chloe as he attended to a pressing matter not too far away. I am loath to leave my wife alone for too long, so make this quick, he told a man, the husband of one of the guests who had arrived with Marchioness Isabella. Of course. If my wife showed Her Grace any disrespect, I would like to ask for forgiveness, the man said. Duke Damien didn't shift his focus from Chloe, who remained still in her sledge. Did you just want to see me just to tell me that? He asked the man, his tone harsh, scaring him. My sincere apologies, Your Grace, the man said, visibly shaking. Duke Damien's hands remained folded as he tapped his fingers gently, observing the ladies skating close to Chloe. Duke Damien's thoughts churned as he watched Chloe, silent and calm on her sledge. What are you thinking right now, Chloe? If I could find out what is going on inside your head, would it quench this aggravating thirst? I want to know what the world looks like to you. I want to analyze every bit of you and understand the workings of your mind. I want to be the only one present in the world you see through your eyes, he mused. What is this desire I feel? Could it be that I want this woman to love me? Me, desire Chloe Verdier's love? Have I gone mad? He almost thought aloud, faking a cough to hide his thoughts. Your Grace? Lord Spencer said, interrupting his reverie. Look here, Lord Spencer, Duke Damien said, stepping up to the man. If it is forgiveness you seek, tell your wife to apologize to her directly. Do not waste my time with trivialities, he said, leaning towards him, startling him. I must go before anyone commits an even graver offense against my wife, he added, walking away from Lord Spencer. In that instant, Duke Damien heard the sound of a crash. Lady Thisse. She is in danger. Someone cried out loudly. Duke Damien observed Chloe's sledge tumbled on the iced floor, her walking cane beside it. Chloe remained close to an open crack on the ice, grasping for help as she slid gently into the cracked ice. She looked scared as she fell into the river. Chloe! Duke Damien shouted in shock. As Chloe fell deeper into the water, she wondered what was happening. It's so cold. Is this how I die? If I really am going to die, I would like to see them, she thought, flashes of her family going through her mind. She saw Duke Damien's face. He called her name, wearing a smile. Chloe's eyes closed as she anticipated the end. Suddenly, someone held her in the water, swimming back to the surface, carrying her. Now out of the cold water, Chloe coughed, vomiting the water she had swallowed. Duke Damien, who had saved her, watched her with fear. He wore an angry look, determined to know who had tried to kill his wife. We will require complete rest for the time being. It's extremely fortunate that His Grace dove to your rescue without delay. Had he reached you any later, you may have suffered irreparable harm, the physician told Chloe as she lay in bed after the accident. I'm so glad you are all right, my lady. Margaret, her handmaiden, exclaimed suddenly. Chloe didn't utter a word. The ice skating chair couldn't have fallen over on its own. That can only mean someone pushed me on purpose. It isn't hard to guess who was behind it, she thought. Margaret, did you say all the guests had left with the exception of Marchioness Isabella? She asked calmly. Oh yes, the Marchioness fainted upon seeing you unconscious, Margaret told her, but Chloe stopped her midway. Where is she now? Chloe demanded. Pardon? Why do you wish to see her? Margaret asked, feeling surprised. It is nothing serious, but there is something I must tell her, Chloe replied. Meanwhile, in Duke Damien's parlor, Marchioness Isabella sat with him. Finally, I have a moment to speak to you, she said. Yes, I will grant you this opportunity to speak. So go on, Isabella, he said, holding a glass of whiskey. She wore a seductive look as she watched him with lust. It is just as I expected. Prince Joan's illness is growing more serious. And it seems the king senses that a rebellion is imminent, she told him calmly. Is that so? Duke Damien asked, sounding surprised. His Majesty has threatened to take my life if I do not bring you to Swain. What do you say to hiding in a villa in Winesbury for now? I will tell His Majesty that you disappeared en route to Swain, she said gently, walking to his seat. I will help you, Damien, she added, sitting on the chair's armrest and touching his hand gently. A disappearance? Damien asked as he felt her touch. Duke Damien took a moment, his mind racing with the implications of her proposal. He knew he had to tread carefully, both with Isabella and the precarious political situation they found themselves in. Do not worry, Damien, I am on your side, Isabella said, assuring him of her loyalty. Isabella, I hope you are not thinking that I really will go to Winesbury on your advice, he replied, brushing her face gently with his hand. But if you do not, you will be in danger, she said, sounding shocked. Your skin has grown cold, Isabella. The way it always does when you are lying, he told her, making her flinch. There is likely a band of assassins waiting for me in Winesbury. I would have to be barking mad to walk into their trap. Damien, what do you mean? She asked, trying to deny the accusation but sounding scared. Do not feign ignorance. You are making an utter fool of yourself. Did you think I was oblivious to the fact that you have betrayed me and chosen to join hands with the king? There will be no further dealings between you and me, he said, pouring himself another drink, his face wearing a smirk. You now have nowhere to turn, Isabella. If you fail to bring me to Winesbury, His Majesty will likely do away with you, he told her, observing her trembling body. This is entirely your fault. If you had not cast me aside after getting married, I would never have had reason to betray you, Marchioness Isabella said, suddenly sounding terrified. Duke Damien observed her calmly before placing his glass on the table. What a strange thing to say. How could I have cast you aside if I never thought of you as mine to begin with? How absurd to call it abandonment, he said, pouring away his drink. Your only task was to play the part of my lover while investigating the affairs of the royal family. Even that would have been impossible had you not been the late Queen's maid. Moreover, I believe I have already paid you your fee for carrying out your work, he said, causing her to flinch in shock. Now, was there anything more to our relationship? He asked her coldly. If I return to the king now, he will have me killed, Isabella said, slumping to his leg, tears in her eyes as she begged him. Please, Damien, do not forsake me, she pleaded. Poor Isabella, he said, stroking her face with a cold look. Did you really expect to survive after attempting to instigate the murder of my wife? Did you think I would not know? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I was nowhere near the Duchess when it happened, she said, shifting back from him in fear. Isabella, do not enrage me further by repeating ludicrous lies, he said, stepping away from her. Marchioness Isabella watched him with fear. She clenched her fist before rushing to the Duke, holding him by the waist. I love you, Damien. Please save me. Help me, Damien, do not cast me aside. Everything I did was out of love for you, she pleaded in tears. It is too late now, Isabella. Now get out of my sight at once, he told her coldly. At that moment, Chloe and Margaret reached the door. Chloe could hear Lady Isabella begging Damien, professing her love for him. Margaret placed her hands against her mouth in shock as Chloe wore a sad look. Margaret, let us return to my chambers, she said. Duke Damien heard her voice as he held Lady Isabella. He walked up to the door, calling Chloe back. Chloe, you are awake. The physician ordered complete rest. Why are you here? He asked her gently. Chloe turned towards him before wearing a smile. I wished to see the Marchioness and apologize for causing a commotion, she told him. She's not in a state to see company at present. You will have to see her some other time, he said. Since you are here as well, is there something you wish to say? She asked him. What is it? Duke Damien replied politely. Please allow me to return to the Verdier estate, she said, perplexing the Duke. Why should I do that?
Duke Damien demanded.
My accident has made me long to see my father. It need not be a long visit, Chloe replied. I'm afraid I can't allow that, he said firmly. May I ask the reason? Chloe requested. You are now the wife of Damien von Thisse, not Thomas Verdier's daughter. A duchess faithful to her duties would never entertain the thought of leaving her husband to fend for himself, he explained. Faithful to my duties? Is it your expectation that I fulfill all my duties while you reserve your affections for your mistress? Chloe retorted, gripping her cane tightly. Chloe, don't tell me, are you jealous? He asked, a sinister look on his face. Of course not, she replied, turning her gaze away from him. Duke Damien smirked, satisfied to see her tormented. It is late, you should turn in for the night. Let us revisit this discussion about going to Verdier some other time. Perhaps we can figure out a way to avoid being apart. Now, I have some pressing matters to attend to. I bid you good night, my wife, he said, entering back into his parlor and shutting the door behind him. Why do I feel so tormented? Chloe thought as she limped through the snow-covered field that night. I entered this marriage knowing full well the kind of man he was. I promised myself that I would not concern myself with his private life. So what on earth was I expecting from him? She said in anger as she slumped to the ground in sadness. I want to run away. If I could, I would return home in a heartbeat. I don't want to remain here for a moment longer, she thought, tears dripping down her cheeks. She soon arrived at Gillis's cottage. Are you all right, my lady? Gillis asked as he offered her tea. I am sorry, Gillis. You must have been shocked by my sudden visit, she said as she sat down on his bed. My lady, did something happen? He asked, sounding concerned. No, there is no need to be concerned. I just suddenly found myself longing for home. I thought seeing you might make it feel as if I had been transported there, Chloe said, her voice softening. Lady Chloe, Gillis called her calmly. Chloe sipped the tea, immediately appreciating its taste. The tea is delicious. Thank you, Gillis. It is nothing compared to the first cup of tea you offered me, he said, almost laughing, clearly pleased with himself. The first cup of tea I gave you? Has it been 10 years already since we met? She asked. 11 years. It has been 11 years, my lady, Gillis told her. He remembered their first meeting vividly. You looked just like a puppy. Did you say your name was Gillis? Chloe had asked him back then as he worked. Gillis had stared at her, his cheeks turning red. She had then offered him a cup of tea with a warm smile. I'm so glad you are here, she had said. Reflecting on that moment brought a sense of comfort to Chloe. Even as she faced the challenges of her current situation, the familiarity and kindness from Gillis reminded her of a time when things were simpler. The mug of tea you gave me that day was the warmest, most delicious thing I've ever tasted. I will never forget it, Gillis told her calmly. Thank you for saying that, Gillis. I feel heartened knowing my goodwill meant something to someone, Chloe replied. My lady, Gillis said, his tone more serious. Yes, what is it? Chloe asked. Gillis hesitated before speaking. It's nothing. I just wanted to point out that the water was boiling. Please let me know if you'd like more tea, he said, though his look was tense. I wish you weren't in so much pain, my lady, he thought inwardly. The next morning, Chloe hurried back to the castle, her limp quickening with concern. I can't believe I fell asleep at Gillis's cottage. It's a good thing no one noticed, she thought, clutching her cloak tightly. I nearly caused a dangerous misunderstanding. If the Duke were to find out, there would be serious consequences for Gillis. What were you thinking, Chloe? She asked herself. As she made her way down the hallway, a loud scream pierced the air. There's a dead body in here. Marchioness Isabella is dead. A maid cried out, her voice trembling as she pointed to Isabella's lifeless form slumped in a chair. The Marchioness's body was discovered by her maidservant, who had accompanied her from Swain. Following the investigation, the royal policeman informed Duke Damien and Chloe, we found a vial of arsenic in the Duchess's room. It's the same type of poison that was in the Marchioness's teacup. I swear I've never seen such a substance before, Chloe said, her tension evident. Yet it was found in your room, the policeman replied, noting her statement in his book. Moreover, witnesses have testified to your hostility towards the Marchioness. Chloe looked shocked and frightened. And who dared suggest such a thing? Are you implying that my wife is responsible for the murder? Duke Damien demanded, his voice angry. My apologies, Your Grace, but I cannot reveal the witnesses' identities for their protection. Given that the only other person with access to Her Grace's chambers besides the Duchess herself is her maidservant, the policeman said. Chloe looked stunned, trembling slightly from the accusations. Duke Damien, sensing her distress, placed his hand over hers in reassurance. My wife is incapable of harming anyone. Even if she were the culprit, she would have had to slip the poison into the teacup overnight. We were preoccupied all night, weren't we, Chloe? Duke Damien asked, his gaze fixed on her with a smile. Chloe looked at him, perplexed, her mind returning to the previous night at Gillis's cottage. I would like to question Her Grace directly. May I inquire about your whereabouts last night? The policeman asked Chloe. Chloe hesitated, fidgeting. Duke Damien intervened, saying, I can answer for her. My wife was with me all throughout the night. He gently kissed her hand as he spoke. The policeman cleared his throat, observing the interaction. Is that not so, Chloe? Duke Damien asked, looking at his tense wife. Chloe, under the police's instructions, was imprisoned and would remain so until the trial. She refused to eat and lay in her cell, reflecting on her situation. It has been 3 days already. Did I wish for Marchioness Isabella to die? I admit my feelings towards her were not positive, but I never wanted her to meet such a fate. My resentment was not directed towards her, she thought, staying still in bed. Duke Damien visited her cell. I hear you've been refusing your meals. You'll starve to death if you keep this up, he said, drawing her attention. That would spare the executioner the trouble of hanging me, Chloe replied, turning her head back to the bed. You speak as if you wish to die, Duke Damien said, sitting beside her. It seems they doubt my testimony. They find it odd that a couple who supposedly spent the night together were found apart in the morning, he continued, causing Chloe to look at him sternly. I did not murder the Marchioness. Someone must have planted the arsenic in my room to frame me, Chloe said, sitting up in bed. Duke Damien watched Chloe with a calm but intense gaze. If that's the case, someone must have planted the poison in your absence. Where were you that night? He asked, brushing her hair gently. Why didn't you tell the police you spent the night at Gillis's cottage? Chloe shifted uncomfortably. Duke Damien continued, Gillis came to me, pleading for you. He was almost in tears, ready to go to the police himself. It took considerable effort to calm him down. Meanwhile, you've been silent for 3 days. Despite having a witness who could clear you, you chose not to mention him. I've been trying to understand why. Chloe's voice was soft but firm. No nobleman would want scandalous rumors about his wife and servant to spread. Is that truly the reason? Duke Damien pressed. Or are you trying to protect the stablemaster with whom you spent a secretive night? Or perhaps you fear that I would divorce you for infidelity and that your family would fall into ruin once more. I have neither committed a crime nor been unfaithful, Chloe said, swaying slightly away from him. Then have Gillis testify, at least to save yourself, Duke Damien said, his tone growing colder. However, you cannot avoid the possibility of divorce or your family's downfall, he tells her. He watched her, noting her clenched bedsheets and bowed head. Duke Damien observed Chloe with a complex mixture of emotions. As he watched her, he thought, I know you are incapable of making such a decision, Chloe Verdier. You would never sacrifice your loved ones for your own life. He gently raised her face, his voice soft yet commanding, Beg me for your life, Chloe. Even if the court rejects my testimony, I still have the power to ensure you will not die. If you have that kind of power, Chloe said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks, then please, ensure that the execution is held in private. That is my last request to you as your wife. Her words stunned Duke Damien, leaving him shocked and confused. He stared at her, grappling with the unexpected request and the deep emotional weight of the moment. The day of the court hearing arrived. As Duke Damien took the stand, the judge asked, according to your Grace's testimony, you were with the Duchess from midnight to 6 in the morning on the night of the murder. Does your testimony still stand? The judge asked Duke Damien as he stood at the stand. Duke Damien looked toward Chloe, recalling her request from the previous night. Chloe, seated and looking sad, remained silent. Yes, it does, Duke Damien replied. The judge pressed, then how do you explain that you were in your study the following morning? Is that relevant to my testimony? Duke Damien interjected. I am saying there were no witnesses who saw you with the Duchess. The judge retorted. Are you implying that I made a false statement? Duke Damien challenged. That is a baseless assumption. In the absence of witnesses, your testimony lacks credibility, the judge responded. What if I tell you there was a witness? Duke Damien said, striking the stand with his hand. What? Do you? The judge asked, surprised. Chloe, perplexed, raised her head slightly. Duke Damien announced, I request that Gillis Watteau, a servant of Birchcastle, be brought forward as a witness. Gillis entered the courtroom and took the stand. The judge asked him, Gillis Watteau, do you swear before God to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, Gillis replied. Chloe looked stunned as Gillis avoided her gaze. Gillis, what on earth are you thinking? She thought anxiously. I can attest to the fact that the Duchess was in the company of Duke Thisse that night, Gillis said to the court. Why have you chosen to withhold that statement until now? The judge asked. Because I committed the grave sin of spying on my master's most private moments, Gillis replied, looking tense. That won't do, Gillis. You will have to be more explicit, Duke Damien said, still standing behind him. Gillis pressed his hand against the stand, shaking slightly. Exhausted from attending to guests, I found myself tossing and turning until late that night. Upon hearing sounds in the middle of the night, I went to investigate. Outside, I discovered the Duke and Duchess having a quarrel. It was a typical married couple's dispute caused by a misunderstanding involving the Marchioness. However, the argument soon ended, and they moved into the storehouse, Gillis recounted, drawing the court's full attention. Unable to suppress my curiosity, I committed the grave mistake of watching their most intimate moments, Gillis added. Are you suggesting that you have kept silent all this time solely to conceal a minor transgression? The judge asked. For servants such as him, Even seemingly minor transgressions can have significant repercussions. I shall be addressing Gillis Watteau's misconduct personally once this trial is over, Duke Damien said, stepping forward. Chloe watched Gillis with a tense look.
No,
Gillis, telling such lies could get you in serious trouble, she thought. The judge looked confused. I cannot adjudicate this case based solely on the servant's testimony. I shall postpone the verdict by 10 days, he announced. 10 days? Do you mean to keep my wife incarcerated in a cold prison cell until then? Has the severe winter of Thisse frozen the judge's ability to reason? Duke Damien demanded angrily.
Duke Thisse.
Do not forget that I am an envoy sent by His Majesty himself. The judge shouted in response. Dear. I had intended to treat the king's envoy with civility, but my patience has reached its limit, Duke Damien said, reaching into his cloak. House Thisse physician discovered this in the mouth of the late Marchioness. He held up a button used exclusively for royal servants' attire. I instructed the physician to remain silent for the sake of the royal family. However, if this witch-hunting against my wife persists, there will be no grounds for me to extend such consideration, Duke Damien said angrily. Chloe watched him calmly, her face a mask of resolve amidst the escalating tensions. What are you all waiting for? The royal maidservant is a prime suspect. Arrest her at once. Duke Damien demanded angrily. 10 days later, Chloe remained in her room, clutching herself. She recalled whispers from the maid's gossip. I heard the king tried to use Marchioness Isabella to murder Duke Thisse, one maid said to another. That's true, the second maid replied. But because she failed in her mission, the king had her killed to cover up the plot, the first maid said. And then they had the audacity to falsely accuse Lady Thisse of the crime. They say Prince Johannes is mentally unstable. Could that be why the royal family is afraid of his grace? The Duke must have known this incident would put him at odds with the royals, yet he didn't hesitate to come to her Grace's rescue. Isn't it so romantic? The first maid asked, sounding delighted. In Duke Damien's parlor, Chloe knocked on his door before stepping in. I did not call for you today, he said, his eyes fixed on a book. You look fatigued, Chloe remarked. My weariness must pale in comparison to yours. Don't just stand there. Come take a seat, he told her. It is late. Shall I bring you some tea to help you sleep? She asked politely as she sat down. I am in the mood for alcohol tonight, not tea, he replied, resuming his reading. What are you thinking about so intently? He asked, observing her silence. There is something I must tell you tonight, Chloe said with seriousness. Will this be yet another request to return to Verdier? I am tired. Come back tomorrow, Duke Damien said, sounding annoyed as he shut his book. Your Grace, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for your help, Chloe said, causing him to pause. Is there something you want from me? Are you attempting to flatter me to secure a visit? He asked. No, Your Grace. I simply wished to thank you for defending me despite knowing it would antagonize the royal family. You did everything in your power to save me. Though lies were told, nobody suffered any harm, including Gillis, she said calmly. When you came to visit me in the prayer room, I allowed my pride to cloud my judgment instead of trusting you as my husband and seeking your help. For that, I offer a sincere apology. Are you not upset that I did not disclose the identity of the culprit earlier, subjecting you to such an ordeal? Duke Damien said, dropping his book on the table. I am well aware that you had your relationship with the royal family to consider, she told him. I could have remained silent and allowed you to be put to death, he said. Yet you did not. Instead, you earned the enmity of the royals. Despite having no compelling reason to do so, that holds profound meaning to me, she said with appreciation. What is it that you wish to say? He demanded. In the same way you have shown unwavering devotion as my husband, I am determined to carry out my duties wholeheartedly as your wife and Duchess, Chloe said. Are you saying your efforts have only been half-hearted so far? He asked with a smirk. Damien, may I ask why you have not yet consummated our marriage? She inquired, piquing his interest. What an odd question to ask while thanking someone, he remarked. I beg to differ. After all, it is a duchess's duty to ensure the continuation of her husband's lineage, she replied. Is that the only reason you asked? He said, placing his hand against his chin. "I meant nothing else by it," she assured him. Duke Damien looked at her briefly before letting out a sigh. "Fine, I shall answer your question," he said, rising from his seat. "I would not stoop to exploiting my power to pursue affection from a woman who expresses nothing but disdain towards me," he said coldly. "If that suffices as an answer, I suggest you return to your bedchamber. It is late, as you never fail to remind me," he added firmly, startling her. Outside the Duke's chambers, Chloe stood still in the hallway, her heart beating faster. Just a fortnight ago, she was certain of her judgment about him. She stood there, thoughts racing through her mind. He seemed cold and cruel. "I thought him rude, arrogant, and selfish. He has not changed at all since our first encounter. So why do I find my resentment fading away? What was it about him that I disliked?" I thought those initial feelings had disappeared completely, she thought as she turned and headed back to his bedchamber. What Chloe wished to convey to the Duke that day wasn't mere gratitude. As she opened the door, she was surprised to find Duke Damien standing there. "I do not hate you, Damien," she thought, embracing him. They soon found themselves in bed together. The atmosphere was intimate, and Duke Damien's kisses were tender as Chloe expressed her feelings through her moans and physical response. "Your Grace, I do not hate you," she said softly, trembling under his touch. Duke Damien took control, and they lost themselves in the moment. He wore a flushed look. Drawing himself close to her, they kissed. Unbeknownst to Chloe, Duke Damien had orchestrated it all. On the morning of Marchioness Isabella's death, Duke Damien received news from Lord Wyse. "Marchioness Isabella is dead. It seems the royal palace intends to declare war on your Grace," Lord Wyse informed Duke Damien. "Indeed. Doubtless, they sent the Marchioness to keep a close watch on me. The maidservant she brought with her from the palace is clearly the culprit, but there is no evidence to prove it. She was poisoned. If we could just secure proof, you could use it to your advantage," Lord Wyse suggested, shaking his head in frustration. "If there is no evidence, we must create our own. Go and see the physician," Duke Damien instructed, "and let us tip off the red veil. We shall claim that the royals used a mistress to spy on the Duke, only to dispose of her once she was no longer of use," he said, writing something down. "Since the king has set the stage, it is only right that I respond accordingly," he added. In that moment, he saw Chloe from his window, limping into Thisse Castle, wrapped in a familiar blanket. That blanket. Was she with that servant? He thought, recognizing Gillis' blanket. "Chloe Verdier, what on earth must I do to make you mine?" He pondered before turning back to Lord Wyse. "Remind me of the reason for your oath of loyalty to me." "It was a token of gratitude for you saving my life on the battlefield," Lord Wyse replied. "I saved your life. Do you think a woman might feel indebted in the same way?" Duke Damien asked, smiling. "It is time to adjust the plan. Go to the Duchess's room and place this vial in her bag," he ordered.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.